Tonight in 7 News, Russia attacks Ukraine. Explosions across the skyline, the declaration of war made with an angry televised address. Almost immediately, the missile strikes began. As we go to air, there are reports of hundreds of casualties. The conflict strikes the stock market with an immediate impact on petrol prices. The Australian government condemns the attack. Developing news at home, we're live to the flood zones with more rain building into the night. Anti-vaxxer Clive Palmer taken to hospital on the Gold Coast, suffering COVID-like symptoms. Cricket legend Rod Marsh suffers a heart attack in Bundaberg. His old teammates are by his side. And all set for Powerball's mind-boggling $120 million draw.
Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Sharon Gadella and Max Futcher.
Good evening. Global peace is under threat tonight as Vladimir Putin triggers an invasion of Ukraine. The operation began this afternoon. Russia's targets right now are in eastern Ukraine, but explosions have even been heard in the capital. This video was taken 130 kilometres from Lviv, showing a missile honing in. A stark warning from inside the UN General Assembly tonight. This could be the end of world order as we know it.
Minutes before dawn, eastern Ukraine's sky starts glowing. It was 6 a.m. in Moscow. Vladimir Putin addressing his nation to declare Russia's special military operation had begun.
I've decided to conduct a special military operation. It aims to protect people who have been bullied and subjected to genocide by the Kiev regime.
The rant unfolded for over an hour, timed in unison with explosions in eastern Ukraine. And inside the holy grail of Putin's ambitions, the Ukrainian capital, Kiev.
Oh, I tell you what, I just heard a big bang right here behind me. I thought we shouldn't have done the live shot here. There are big explosions taking place in Kiev right now.
We will strive to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine and will bring to justice those who committed multiple bloody crimes against civilians, including Russian citizens.
A state of emergency is tonight being enforced in Ukraine. Curfews, military and citizens on alert for a call up to war.
Here in Lviv, the air raid sirens have just sounded. A loudspeaker announcement also telling people to go home, to go into their basements and take cover, to turn off their electricity and gas, to gather their documents and await further instructions.
US intelligence reports say Russia has nearly 100% of its forces it needs to invade. Here's where tanks and troops are targeting first. On the east of Ukraine, 2 territories already held by Russian rebels, Donetsk and Luhansk. The invasion is creeping into Ukrainian-controlled areas, Russia declaring its key target tonight, the area of Donbass. It's 800 kilometres from the capital Kiev. Shelling and explosions have also been heard in Mariupol, Dnipro City and Kharkiv. Knowing a new war was brewing, Vladimir Putin earlier paid tribute to the past. In the rain, weathering international sanctions, he laid a wreath before sending soldiers to a modern-day front line. Cyber attacks were already targeting Ukraine before gunfire rang out, and a late UN meeting in New York turned into an all-nighter.
The beginning of a large-scale war in Ukraine will be the end of the world order as we know it.
America predicted it was when, not if, Ukraine's president was preparing for the worst.
If they try to take our country, our freedom, our lives, we will defend ourselves.
Now he'll have no choice.
We have our reporters in Ukraine and Washington tonight. Let's go first to Jeff Parry in Lviv. And Jeff, bring us up to date. What's happening there right now?
Well, Sharon, as this day unfolds, it's becoming clear that despite what Mr Putin said earlier, that this is no small land grab, this is a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. If I can bring you up to date with some of the military action as we're starting to learn it. Russian tanks have crossed the Ukrainian-Belarus border. That's about an hour north of Kiev. You saw that rocket that hit the airport south of Lviv, so that shows that they're moving into the west of the country. Lots of explosions, lots of government buildings have been targeted and destroyed. Military headquarters have been attacked with cruise missiles. But Ukraine is fighting back. The Ukraine Defence Ministry said a short time ago that Ukraine has shot down 5 Russian jets and a Russian helicopter. A little earlier today, martial law was declared. President Zelensky addressed his countrymen and appealed for calm. I'll just quote a little bit of what he said. He said the army is working, the whole security and defence sector is working. Don't panic. We are strong. But despite those attempts at calming words, people are fleeing Kiev, where there's been quite a bit of military action. Long lines of cars leaving the cities, queuing up for petrol, long lines at petrol stations. A lot of the roads, some of the roads around Lviv are also quite clogged at the moment, so people are trying to leave the city. And west of here, we're told that at the border control, cars are being held up at the Polish border. Back to you.
Yes, certainly some worrying developments there. All right, thank you, Jeff. Now to US Bureau Chief Ashley Mullaney, who's in Washington, D.C. Ash, America has reacted swiftly.
Good evening, Sharon. Yes, the US president has vowed to hold Russia responsible for its invasion of Ukraine. Moments after Vladimir Putin announced this military action, Joe Biden released a statement describing it as unprovoked and unjustified, saying President Putin has chosen a premeditated war that will bring catastrophic loss of life and human suffering, warning of further consequences the United States and our allies and partners will impose on Russia. Just what those consequences are, we will learn in the coming hours. Joe Biden plans to hold a meeting with G7 leaders this morning, and he will then address the nation at noon. Ukraine's President Zelensky has spoken to Joe Biden this evening. He also tried to speak to Vladimir Putin in a last-ditch attempt to have him hold off on this invasion, but his call to the Kremlin went unanswered. His attempt to speak to Vladimir Putin went unanswered. The Ukrainian president defiant tonight as his country comes under attack, and the world waits and holds its breath to see how far Vladimir Putin will go.
All right, Ashley Mullaney in Washington, thank you very much. The conflict in Ukraine is already being felt here. The stock market has taken a hit, with pain at the petrol pump showing no sign of easing. Scott Morrison says while more sanctions are on the cards, Australian troops won't be deployed.
Having ruled out Australian boots on the ground, Scott Morrison fires back from the lip.
I'll call it what it is. The Russian government launched a brutal invasion, unprovoked, on Ukraine, and should be condemned for doing so.
Having earlier met Governor-General David Hurley,
Morning, Your Excellency,
signing sanctions into law now that the invasion is on, going further, widening the sanctions that cover all members of Russia's parliament, senior military leaders and 4 more financial institutions.
We must ensure there is a cost for this violent, unacceptable and egregious behaviour. There must be a cost.
Economic weapons, but no military involvement.
That's not under contemplation by Australia, never has been, never been requested.
Labor leader Anthony Albanese calling it a shameful act of aggression and a grave moment for humanity.
This is full-on war.
Security analyst Malcolm Davis says Australia should sever all trade with Russia, but agrees sending in troops isn't an option.
We are not going to deliberately go into essentially what would be a third world war.
Unpredictable, nuclear armed, a bully. Vladimir Putin's gambling on the West doing all it can to avoid the human cost of another world war, as his invasion extracts a financial cost, smashing our stock market. The ASX 200 plummeting almost 3%, down 215 points, falling below the 7,000 mark, wiping about $70 billion from the value of stocks in just a few hours. Analysts warning against panic.
I don't think it's time to panic, no. We might yet see further falls. Nobody knows what the short-term future brings. In the long term, I expect the market to keep its march higher.
As stocks dive, the price of petrol soars.
Unfortunately, pretty much every town and centre across the country are paying prices that we have never paid for before.
Regular unleaded as high as $2.06 a litre in Melbourne and going above $2 in most cities except Brisbane. Russia supplies 12% of the world's oil, but US President Joe Biden has promised to increase America's production to cover any supply dip forced by the conflict.
We don't believe that we're going to hit $2.50 a litre.
The cost of aggression.
This is a chilling reminder of the world that we live in.
A world now on edge.
And Mark Riley, will Scott Morrison's actions have any impact on Vladimir Putin?
Well, the experts say no, Sharon, but Scott Morrison says it is essential for the West to maintain a united front of resistance to Vladimir Putin and that it's important for Australia to be a part of that. He's defended the sanctions regime, which really did nothing to prevent the bombs from falling, and says Australia and its allies will now press ahead with further measures, insisting they will have an impact, giving Putin and his cronies nowhere to run and nowhere to hide their assets. With the decision made now not to go after the Russian leadership militarily, world leaders have decided to go after their wallets. Scott Morrison says Russia's ambassador here in Canberra won't be thrown out at this stage. He wants him to remain near so he can maintain a direct line to Moscow for Australia's messages of disgust and condemnation. Sharon.
Mark Riley reporting there. And this is the Story Bridge right now. It's lights off in solidarity with those affected by what's unfolding in Ukraine. The gesture is tonight being repeated across many Brisbane landmarks, including City Hall, all falling dark. To the southeast, major flood event now, and Max, residents are bracing for another night of wild weather.
They are, Sharon. This severe system is developing tonight. Conditions are deteriorating with another deluge still forecast. The death toll has risen today after a 54-year-old man's body was found near Gympie.
Closing in on the southeast. Gympie, the Sunshine Coast, the Gold Coast, Brisbane, all already saturated and all now bracing for another soaking. Whitewater raging from Whopper Dam. The severe system building, brewing, gathering power, and sadly claiming another life. The body of 54-year-old Phil Lambert found near Gympie a day after he went missing in floodwaters. Crews searched desperately for him for more than 24 hours.
This is a very tragic outcome to a very extensive search. His family are obviously very traumatised. Incredibly upset. It's a highly distressing situation.
The flooding's first victim has been identified as 63-year-old Philippa Taylor from Belli Park, who was found dead in her submerged SUV. The sodden conditions are stopping commuters in their tracks. Workers won't be able to retrieve the derailed train at Traviston for days. Overnight, there was a slight reprieve in the rain. The biggest falls recorded at Currumbin Creek with 101 millimetres. Warnings remain in place for the Mary, Noosa, Maroochy, Malula, Caboolture and Upper Brisbane rivers.
Moving into tonight and overnight, that's when we could see more intense pockets, so up to 300 millimetres falling in short amount of time, so around 6 hours.
This is the Stanley River just outside of Woodford, and like many waterways across the Sunshine Coast, it has swollen and burst its banks, leaving a number of properties cut off. The levels have been dropping throughout the day, but with more rain, it's expected they will rise and leave plenty of people stranded. A nervous wait for Michelle Dranfield, who's already had to move 45 animals to higher ground.
Probably tonight again will be a bit of a sleepless night.
A sleepless night too for organisers of the Junior Surf Lifesaving State Championships, due to start tomorrow at Alexandra Headland.
We are going to do a risk assessment tomorrow morning, first thing.
Well, it really has been a very slow and ominous build-up to this weather event, as the system has just lurked off the coast for days now, but it does really feel like it is starting to make its assault onto land. The surf is wild, the wind is really picking up here at Alexandra Headland, and the showers are becoming more consistent. Tonight, across the southeast, we're expecting moderate rain for most areas, but if you find yourself under a storm, then the rain could be quite severe.
That is particularly concerning for those areas that are already soaked and at risk of further flooding. So it will be a very nervous 24 hours as we finally learn what this weather system has in store.
Yes, there's so much water already in the ground. Thanks for that, Joel. Let's go to Anna McGraw now. Anna, Gympie is in danger of being cut off.
Max, local residents here are being warned to expect the worst this evening. Emergency services and the local council, they're worried that with already the local catchments incredibly saturated, that with more rainfall overnight, the Mary River could be pushed to serious flood levels. The Mary River spilling over, cutting the Kidd Bridge.
Watching and waiting at the moment and keeping our fingers crossed.
Floodwaters barely receding overnight after Tuesday's deluge. 1 mile oval still a lake. Overnight a small reprieve, only 11 millimetres fell on the town. But today a warning from local police and council, the worst is yet to come.
This will not be our first flood. Residents know that we will have inundation.
We have a number of police that actually aren't working at the moment but on standby.
Businesses are prepared.
Knowing that there'll probably be major flood in the next 2 days, so we're evacuating the office just for safety.
Moving everything to higher ground in case they go under.
This building can go almost fully under.
The local Gem Club also trying to keep their valuables dry.
We've got to shift much out as we can.
One of 2 bridges connecting both sides of town is currently underwater. Locals say if the Normanby Bridge also goes under overnight, they'll be forced to stay at home.
There's a very large possibility that it is not over.
As a community braces for what lies ahead. Anna McGraw, 7 News.
Swift water rescue crews started work at the crack of dawn on the Gold Coast with a couple trapped in their camper van. The hinterland was the hardest hit, floodwaters closing a number of roads, leaving residents stranded.
At 2:30 in the morning, a swift water rescue crew move a camper van to higher ground as Somerset Road turns to rapids.
The water was rising. They were in a position where they couldn't get out.
By sunlight, sporting fields were transformed into swimming pools as relentless rain plunged Mudgeeraba underwater. By 10 a.m, residents heading to and from Narangwood and Austinville were stopped in their tracks. A young family unsure how they'll return home, the only way in and out, too dangerous to cross.
When we went to town, it wasn't over at all. Come back and it's over. So, but we're used to this.
11 minutes is all it took for Berrigan Road to go under, giving drivers second thoughts. In the city, rain pelted the glitter strip, winds deterring tourists, tables left bare. At Mount Tambourine at Rotary Lookout, on a clear day, you can see all of the scenic rim, 100 kilometres to Cunningham's Gap. Today, it's a whiteout. At Curtis Falls Cafe, they're preparing for more rain, packing away furniture.
Bring it all in, lock the shop up, hope for the best.
A 2-day deluge at Purlingbrook Falls had Mother Nature working her magic. A tumbling torrent drenching Springbrook National Park.
After it stops, we always get a bunch of people to come check out the waterfalls and everything, and it's a good top-up for the waterfalls as well.
The hinterland downpour brought with it dangerous winds. Locals couldn't wait for SES, so they took matters into their own hands. It was a sight worth a selfie at Hinns Dam.
Now, we've been here when there's nothing, just very slow, but this is amazing.
The dam now at 106%. Residents downstream warned, prepare for flooding. Georgie Chumley, 7 News.
Josh Ripperich is reporting for us from Mudgeeraba tonight. Josh, where are the areas of greatest concern?
Well, Max, it's a low-lying area here, so this rain has hinterland residents worried, and if conditions don't ease, well, then they could be cut off for the next couple of days. SES crews are bolstering their forces right across the Western Ranges, where most of the rain fell today. There's been dozens of calls for help, and Gold Coast Police are urging people to rethink travelling on our roads tonight.
Adam.
Thanks for that, Josh. Let's bring in coastal expert Paul Burt. Now, Bertie, still plenty of rain to come.
Yeah, that's right there, Maxie. It looks as though we're in for another wild day again tomorrow. Now, that low is situated about 100 k's off the Fraser coast. Fortunately, it's been dropping a lot of rain out to sea. Not so much down here on the coast, but still a lot in the hinterland region. Coastal regions more to come. However, it is slowly making its way to the south. Now, we can expect rough conditions on the beaches again tomorrow. Now, the seas have already started to increase and they'll deteriorate even further as we're heading towards tomorrow, more so over the weekend. Max?
Thanks for that, Birdie. Michelle Jensen, Brisbane is tonight firmly in the warning zone.
Yes, Max, a flood watch has been issued for the Brisbane River and minor to moderate flooding is expected. We've seen what this system is capable of and Brisbane residents are being told to prepare now, especially those in low-lying areas. We're being warned 120 to 180 millimetres of rain is possible overnight. Exactly where is unclear. Our dams are filling up. 19 of 25 in the southeast now have more water than they can hold. The water grid is at 71%, its highest point in 3 years. Several water releases are happening and those levels are being monitored around the clock, as is this unpredictable system. The Weather Bureau expects rain to re-intensify tonight and tomorrow.
Thanks, Michelle. Now to Tony Auden and Justin, you have some big changes to that forecast.
Yes, Max. Guidance just in within the past hour shows a major downgrade in the forecast rain across the southeast. Now, here's the latest forecast rain from the European model. It was showing 400 to 500 millimetres just this morning. That has now dropped significantly to 50 to 100 millimetres. Now, the reason it keeps that trough, which would have been the main trigger for heavy rain, off the coast. Now, this is just one solution to the forecast problem. It just suggests that major river flooding is less likely for now. We still have a threat of thunderstorms bringing smaller pockets of heavy rain and flash flooding, and a severe weather warning remains current right across the region for intense rainfall and damaging winds, and we do still need to watch the conditions for the next couple of days. A lot of moving pieces. I'll be back soon with the latest.
Sure are. Thanks for that, Tony. Coming up, we take a closer look at the logistical nightmare facing rail workers following the train derailment at Traviston. That story, plus updates on this developing weather situation coming up throughout the bulletin.
It is all happening. Thank you, Max. The life of Australian cricketing great Rod Marsh is tonight in the balance after he suffered a heart attack in Bundaberg. He's one of the country's most respected wicket-keepers, playing in 14 series until his retirement in 1984. He then went on to a career in player development for Australia and England. He'd only just flown into Bundaberg for a Bulls Masters event at Coral Cove. Marsh suffered the heart attack while in the car with two officials who drove him to Bundaberg Hospital. Former players, including Alan Border, rushed to his bedside. Tonight, the hospital says the 74-year-old is in a critical but stable condition, and we wish him well. He's one of our highest profile anti-vaxxers, now an ambulance called to take Clive Palmer to hospital with symptoms. Street gang crackdown, the new task force targeting young criminals. Sisters in arms, two future queens, Mary and Kate, hit the streets of Copenhagen. And later, the police officers making a big splash to help one of their own. He's rallied against lockdowns and vaccine mandates, but today ambulances were called to Clive Palmer's Gold Coast home. The billionaire businessman taken to hospital to get tested for COVID.
Leaving Pindara Private Hospital.
Clive, how are you feeling, mate? Can we ask how you're going? Clive, was it COVID that you got, mate?
Clive Palmer masked up and whisked away by wife Anna. This morning, his COVID-like symptoms were severe enough to call an ambulance to his Sovereign Islands home. His spokesperson confirming he's ill. He has gone to hospital to be tested for COVID, but will be home tonight.
Clive, was it COVID that you got, mate, or how are you feeling?
Mr Palmer has declared he's unvaccinated and has been outspoken at freedom rallies.
And our freedom doesn't come from Scott Morrison.
That freedom must have seemed out of reach this morning. The Senate candidate had been due to address the National Press Club this week, but on Tuesday, the 67-year-old pulled out of flying to Canberra after coming down with COVID-like symptoms. As recently as yesterday, his spokesman was telling media the billionaire businessman had tested negative to COVID. Mr Palmer's Senate campaign is targeting vaccine mandates. He's understood to have backed court challenges by police and health workers, unsuccessfully sued sued Western Australia for its hard border stance and imported 5 million doses of an anti-malaria drug to treat COVID, later rejected by the Commonwealth. Now the mining magnate could be joining the daily list of COVID cases. Rosanna Kingson, 7 News.
Well, let's bring in Georgie Chumley now. And Georgie, Clive Palmer is back at home.
Sharon, that's right. He returned to his Sovereign Islands home within the last hour after his wife picked him up here from Pindara Private Hospital. He didn't want to speak to media on his way out, but the 67-year-old, we don't know when he'll get his results back or if he has gotten his results back. If he does test positive, he will have to isolate at home for 7 days under Queensland health rules, as well as any household contacts. The state today recorded 6,094 new COVID cases and 8 deaths. 4 of those were in aged care, and there are 334 hospitalisations.
Thank you, Georgie, for the update. Stopping violent crimes by youth gangs will be the focus of a new task force. Police say there is an emerging issue of criminal street gangs in southeast Queensland and that youths involved are aged in their early teens to mid-20s, often from disadvantaged communities.
It varies from just public disturbances right through to, in recent years we've seen people killed.
Task Force Uniform Knot will be headed up by the Organised Crime Gangs Group. Former fugitive Graham Potter wants to be placed in protective custody following his high-profile arrest. He arrived in Melbourne from Cairns last night after 12 years on the run. Potter faced court charged with conspiracy to murder, drug trafficking and failing to answer bail. He'll return to court in May. The British tabloids have dubbed them the Royal Style Sisters. The Duchess of Cambridge has joined our own Crown Princess Mary in Copenhagen, ahead of a royal celebration for another Queen and a chance to join forces with an old friend.
Born at opposite ends of the planet, 2 future queens stroll across Copenhagen's Amalienborg Palace Square. The Duchess of Cambridge and Tasmania's own Crown Princess Mary of Denmark. They have met before. Both once commoners, together they are the future of European royalty.
They both look very beautiful. They're both very strong and inspirational women.
We are proud to show her Copenhagen, so I think it's very nice.
Kate and Mary joined Danish Queen Margrethe, celebrating 50 years on the throne this year, her Golden Jubilee. The Duchess's 2-day tour of Denmark focusing on domestic violence awareness and children. Kate's early childhood education campaign has gone global. She is having an impact. I love you, Kate said, before the kids taught her a thing or two about surviving in the Danish woods. The Duchess trying her hand at almost anything on this trip. Before a final farewell to her friend Mary, they'll no doubt meet again.
Here at Windsor Castle, Queen Elizabeth has held firm on her commitment to speak to the British Prime Minister weekly, taking a phone call from Boris Johnson in the last 12 hours or so. It's a good sign Her Majesty is making good on that commitment to continue to carry out light duties while recovering from COVID. We also now know that the Queen was due to host an in-person audience here, but that was cancelled soon after her diagnosis in line with self-isolation rules here in England, which are actually being dropped here from today as the Queen's recovery continues. Sharon.
All right, thank you, Hugh. The latest on the southeast Queensland weather emergency. Next, we're live to Max in Gympie as we take a closer look at the train derailment. Construction crisis, thousands of jobs on the line as ProBuild goes into administration. Queensland to roll out digital driver's licences, how they'll work. And last-minute tips, what you need to know before tonight's record Powerball jackpot.
Two people have now died in this southeast flood event. The body of 54-year-old Phil Lambert was found near Gympie a day after he went missing in floodwaters, while the first victim has been identified as 63-year-old Philippa Taylor from Belli Park. Heavy falls are still possible right across the southeast. Here in Gympie, emergency services are worried that with local catchments already saturated, more rain could push the Mary River to serious flood levels. Meanwhile, rail services remain disrupted following a derailment south of Gympie. Today, floodwaters dropped enough so we could reach the crash site. The salvage crews are on site, but it will be days before this mess is cleared up. This is the rail line between Traveston and Coran, where, as you can see, rail authorities face a logistical nightmare. Just after 3 o'clock yesterday morning, a northbound freight train hit track damage at the height of the deluge and derailed. You can only imagine the noise when the locomotive came crashing off the rails in pitch black darkness. Now, there are 2 locomotives on their side and at least 5 carriages dislodged from the line. The train driver was the only occupant. He was trapped inside for some time and thankfully has no major injuries, although he is understandably shaken. So the line is blocked and will stay that way for the rest of the week at least. While floodwaters have receded, the ground is far too sodden and unstable to bring in heavy equipment to clear the wreckage. As a result, trains between Nambour and Gympie North are affected. Long-distance travel trains like the Spirit of Queensland, the passengers will be taken by buses between Gympie and Roma Street. Even once the train is cleared, there are still repairs to be done to the line, which suffered significant flood damage. Let's go back to Tony Auden now. Tony, when can we expect the heaviest rain to develop?
Oh, Max, while some models have downgraded that forecast rainfall, we do still have the risk of thunderstorms and some heavy rain in the southeast through coming days. The most likely pattern, a band of storms and that rain closing in from the north through overnight and early hours of tomorrow morning, before continuing into Saturday, then easing. Now, flash flooding likely in parts. We do still have to keep an eye out for river flooding through parts of the southeast as well. I'll be back soon with the forecast.
We'll see you then. Thank you, Tony. The Premier has faced a barrage of questions about lobbyists with Labor ties. It comes as the integrity crisis continues to engulf the Palaszczuk government.
Digging for answers.
Do Labor lobbyists influence the decisions of the Queensland government?
And they must adhere to a lobbyist code of conduct. The opposition putting the spotlight on lobbying firm Enacta, which has donated more than $160,000 to the ALP since 2019.
Can the Premier assure the House Enacta is not being used to funnel illegal donations?
If they have any evidence or any allegations, they can refer that to the ECQ.
Order.
Mr. Speaker. Wellcamp also under scrutiny after Aspen Medical was brought in to help.
Enacta client Aspen Medical was awarded the medical services contract at the Wellcamp quarantine facility without a tender.
The Premier arguing Enacta has never represented the company's involvement in the quarantine facility, adding, since 2017, Aspen has made no donations to the ALP, but has donated $35,050 to the LNP.
Bingo, Premier.
Amid all the murkiness in the integrity saga, there's now clarity about the Integrity Commissioner's resignation letter to the Premier. Nicola Stepanoff proposed finishing on the 1st of July, but said she would remain flexible. If the government would prefer I remain for a longer period until after estimates hearings, I would be more than willing. And that is entirely a matter between her and her new employer. Leaving it to the Commissioner. Marlena Wapp, 7 News.
Thousands of tradies are in limbo tonight after construction giant ProBuild went into administration. It's left unfinished apartment towers and buildings in Brisbane. ProBuild's parent company in South Africa is blaming Australia's border restrictions, snap lockdowns and mandatory work from home regulations. Administrators say they are now working to stabilise the business and projects. It's security footage you have to see to believe. The hunt for clumsy firebugs damaging shops and themselves. A shock for diners, why eating out could cost you more than ever. Digital driver's licences are coming to Queensland. Who's first to try them? And the police officers rallying around an injured cop. Checking finance now, and news of Russia invading Ukraine rocked the Australian share market. The Australian benchmark index recorded its worst day since September 2020. The ASX 200 closing 3% lower. Rio Tinto lost out, down $4.50. Xero fell more than 5%, but Newcrest Mining was strong, up 4%. The Australian dollar is buying 71 US cents and $1.06 New Zealand. Police are hunting a bumbling gang of firebugs targeting businesses across Melbourne. The clumsy arsonists have set fire to 3 tobacco stores in 6 months, but on 2 occasions managed to set themselves alight. Authorities say they've caused $4 million worth of damage. Food prices are expected to follow the rising cost of gas and petrol. Whether dining out or eating in, Queenslanders will pay more. Some businesses say they have no choice if they want to break even.
The cost of a weekly shop is creeping up. Supermarket giants Coles and Woolworths say groceries are more expensive.
They're running at about 2 to 3% today. They're shelf price increases that have happened.
COVID-19 worker shortages, global inflation rates and freight costs have played a part. Now the crisis in Ukraine could see that worsen. The cost of red meat has increased. Fillet steak is selling for around $50 a kilo, while some cuts of lamb are $40 per kilo.
Pork prices have stopped going up and certainly chicken prices are holding, and it seems as if hopefully we'll get better pink salmon prices.
Fresh produce prices are fluctuating. The best value are apples, which are selling for around $3 per kilo, and avocados, which are $1.50. Cafes and restaurants are also feeling the pressure.
It's very hard to tell the customer, oh, I'm going to put the price a little bit up. But I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to survive.
Food prices are expected to increase by around 2 to 3% this year. Queenslanders are being warned the cost of groceries and eating out will rise.
It is what it is, and little things I still want.
Now costing a little more. Georgia Terry, 7 News.
The state government has announced driver's licences are going digital. Queenslanders will be able to access their licences through an app on their smartphones. Townsville will be the first place to trial the new technology and will start at the end of the year. The statewide rollout will finish in 2023. A freak accident left him fighting for life. Now Constable Mark Barclay is learning to walk again. Hear how his police family is helping him each step of the way. We have that touching story just ahead on 7 News. It's sport time now, and Katie, big news up north.
There sure is, Sharon, and it is great news for Cowboys fans. Hello everyone, the club have confirmed a new co-captain. Plus we reveal the softer side to Broncos skipper Ali Brigginshaw. And there's calls for the German tennis star to be banned, but for how long? It's official, new Cowboy Chad Townsend has been named co-captain of the North Queensland club. The ex-Sharks halfback joins current skipper Jason Tamalolo ahead of what they hope will be a more successful season than their second last finish in 2021. The 31-year-old confident he can handle the pressures of captaincy, especially with Big JT by his side.
I don't want to tick him off, to be honest. I've seen some of the boys tick him off a little bit at training, and when he gets angry, when he gets going, he's a bit of a joker, Jace, a little bit. But then when it's time to fire up, I'm just lucky that I'm happy that I don't have to tackle him anymore.
Cowboys play the Broncos in a trial on Saturday night. She's feared and fearless in the rugby league world, but on the eve of the NRLW, Broncos skipper Ali Brigginshaw has revealed a very different side, speaking exclusively to 7 News. Enjoying family time with her wife and kids. Believe it or not, Ali has a sensitive side, just not when it comes to rugby league.
Every game, I'm just someone, I don't want to lose. I'm very competitive.
That ferocity has led the Broncos captain to 3 straight premierships, 11 State of Origins, Australian Gillaroos World Cup success, and to top it all off, a Dally M medal. Those accolades bring fame, headlines and interest in the athlete's love life.
It's kind of weird when you see people, and there's photos of just your relationship. We don't see it any different to anyone else. We just love each other.
And together as one, a force to be reckoned with.
She's a strong, powerful woman, and without her pushing me, I don't think there'd be times where I'd ever stand up if it wasn't for her.
When Ali isn't standing up, she has a unique ability to nod off.
Don't be jealous, it's a gift.
I am actually jealous.
But not so jealous of her green thumb.
She loves tending to the yard. She's very proud of the grass. She has a competition with herself.
Thankfully, never short of help.
Yeah, they're just little friends that you have around the house that,
want your time.
2022 will be the biggest of Briganshaw's career, a full calendar year and the opportunity to win another World Cup crown. And there's no retirement talk yet.
I don't just want to be the NRLW coach because I played. I want to work my way up there.
Reds boss Brad Thorne has been left almost speechless over Southern reports some of his squad are unhappy with his demanding coaching style. The Reds play arch rivals the Waratahs at Leichhardt Oval tomorrow night, and Thorne was genuinely shocked when asked about the Sydney newspaper story. In fact, he thought the question was about the Broncos overdoing it.
Is that the Broncos? Or maybe, I don't know. I think maybe it's down the road.
Red staff putting the rumour down to Southern shenanigans ahead of the interstate blockbuster. Lions coach Chris Fagan can't wait to see Cam Rayner back in action in tomorrow's pre-season game on the Gold Coast. Brisbane meet the Crows at Metricon with the former #1 draft pick back after missing all of last season with a ruptured ACL.
His form in the practice games, I'll be honest, has surprised me. I thought sometimes after 12 months out and not playing, you can be a bit scratchy.
The Lions play their season opener against Port Adelaide in 3 weeks. There are calls for German Alexander Zverev to be banned for months after a shocking act of umpire abuse. The world #3 has apologised for lashing out at the chair umpire in a doubles match in Mexico. He's since been kicked out of the tournament. Back home, Anash Barty hit courts at Kooyong. The world #1 plans to head to Indian Wells next after celebrating her Oz Open title.
It's been quiet, I tell you what. I was on house arrest for a couple of weeks. I was moving houses, so I was unpacking boxes and settling into our new home.
Barty teamed up with Steph Gilmore as part of the Health and Wellbeing program. Good to see, hey Sharon?
Yeah, she's had a busy year, hasn't she?
Absolutely.
Thanks, Katie. Are you feeling lucky? One Australian could have 120 million reasons to celebrate tonight with Powerball jackpotting to $120 million. Almost half the country is expected to have bought a ticket and have their name in the running.
This is the second biggest lottery jackpot that we have ever offered to our players.
The odds of scooping the pool are 1 in 134 million. The best tip, you've got to be in it to win it. Each number has an equal chance of coming up. The jackpot will be drawn at 7:30. Good luck. Making a splash to help one of their own, the police officers getting behind an injured colleague. That's ahead.
And still a wet couple of days ahead of us. I'll have the forecast and latest warnings coming up next.
The South East flood emergency. Where it matters, when it matters, 7 News is there. With breaking news, exclusive pictures, know every development. Certified meteorologist Tony Yordan predicted the system. His expert forecast for what's ahead. It's why Queenslanders turn to 7 News. Full coverage tomorrow at 6.
Queensland Police are diving in to support a much-loved colleague after a freak accident left him fighting for life. Senior Constable Mark Barclay is learning to walk again after falling at a waterfall in Tasmania while holidaying with family.
Taking small steps towards recovery.
You're doing it. How do you feel?
Yeah, a little bit funny.
Okay.
This is Mark Barclay rising to his feet almost 2 months after a freak accident changed his life. The officer was hiking with his wife and 2 young children in Tasmania when the ground beneath him gave way. The 20-metre fall almost claimed his life. Fractured legs, facial injuries and swelling on the brain. He was flown to Royal Hobart Hospital and placed in a coma for 3 weeks.
Since waking, he's had a lot of complications with infections in the brain and also in the chest.
7 weeks since the fall, he's finally back in Queensland, but still recovering in hospital.
His journey is going to be long and arduous.
Mark's work family, the Sunshine Coast Tactical Crime Squad and Police Diving Unit were eager to help. Officers will swim continuous laps for 24 hours, wrapping up at 8 a.m. tomorrow.
Mark's doing a lot tougher than we will be. At 2 in the morning, going for a swim for an hour is nothing in comparison.
Raising money and hope for a young officer in need. Kendall Gilding, 7 News.
Well, let's return to the southeast flood event now. And Max, this wild weather, it isn't over yet.
No, Sharon, heavy falls are still possible tonight, but exactly where the rain will fall is unclear. Right now, the water grid is at 71%. That's its highest point in 3 years. Several water releases are happening and levels are being monitored around the clock. So, Tony, this situation continues to develop. What can we expect for the next few days?
Well, Max, we have seen somewhat of a downgrade in the forecast rainfall for coming days, but widespread heavy rain is looking slightly less likely. We do still have plenty of concerns. Today, gusty showers streaming across the southeast, once again quieter than expected. Falls under 10 millimetres near the coast. A couple of spots picking up over 50 millimetres on the southern border ranges and well inland. Zooming out, thunderstorms are taking off west of the ranges. Storm warning is current for a large area. Damaging winds and heavy rain possible for areas south of Emerald down towards the southern border. Now, looking ahead, while it was first thought we'd see a trough developing across the Wide Bay region tonight, there is now a chance it could hover offshore. If that happens, it would mean rather than seeing a focal point for heavy rain moving across the southeast tomorrow, it would likely be more sporadic heavy showers and thunderstorms. Now, here are the latest forecast rain totals from the European model. They have dropped from close to 500 millimetres earlier today down to 50 to 100 millimetres over the next few days, but other guidance keeps some heavier rain, so pretty much every scenario is still on the cards. Intense pockets of rain and dangerous flash flooding are still a risk, and while not impossible, widespread heavy falls and significant river flooding slightly less likely, but still a chance. Still, you don't want to be the bloke getting stuck in floodwaters. If it's flooded, forget it. Now, a flood watch and severe weather warning remain current across the southeast. Around the capital, showers continuing in Sydney and Canberra tomorrow. Cloudy but dry in Melbourne, morning drizzle in Hobart. To northern Queensland, a slim chance of an afternoon shower or storm in Cairns and a dry 32 in Mackay. Heading south, showers for Rockhampton and Gladstone, increasing to storms and heavier showers from Bundaberg further south along the ranges. In the southeast, we still need to watch out for that potential for heavy rain sweeping down from the north tomorrow, possible at any stage, most likely from late morning into the afternoon. Now in Brisbane, plan for the rain periods and chance of heavy falls. Any dry periods will be a bonus. 21 to 25 here. Don't be surprised if it does get warmer with any breaks in the cloud. Now looking ahead, we still have that risk of heavy showers and the odd storm into Saturday, staying around 24 degrees, then likely to ease into Sunday. In Ipswich, a similar pattern, gradually easing. Pockets of heavy rain Saturday, more likely to be passing showers from Sunday into early next week. Warming up to back into the 30s from Tuesday onwards. Gold Coasters, you could still see some heavy rain into Sunday morning along with those rough beach conditions. Please be very careful on the coastline, a top of 27 on Sunday. And Sunshine Coasters, again, that risk of heavy rain over the next 24 to 48 hours, then easing back to passing showers into the early parts of next week. Even still, we have to keep an eye on those warnings for the next couple of days.
Tony, thank you very much. That is all from us this Thursday. Thanks very much for your company. More updates throughout the evening. Don't forget, live and local news in the morning with Bianca Stone on Sunrise. But for now, from all the team, have a good night.